Well, that was good fun. So we'd like to now, just before our first speaker, invite Ezekiel Rohead to give us our opening prayer.
Nuestro amado Padre Celestial, qué alegría tenemos esta noche de poder estar reunidos aquí en esta nueva conferencia de afirmación internacional. Estamos agradecidos por la unidad y el amor que sentimos en esta comunidad y te agradecemos también por las bendiciones que brindas día a día. Te agradecemos porque afirmación es parte de tu plan en el cual nos das para que nosotros podamos comprender nuestro propósito, nuestro camino y nuestra felicidad. Te rogamos que nos ayudes para que podamos sentirnos plenos y sentirnos felices en esta vida y que por favor ayudes a las personas que lo necesitan, aquellas personas que necesitan de consuelo y que necesitan de la voz de afirmación. Te rogamos para que podamos disfrutar estos días en la conferencia y te rogamos estas cosas en el nombre de Jesucristo. Amén.
So it is now time for our first speaker. Danny Jones is a children's book artist and writer. She earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from BYU, Idaho, and has worked with clients like HarperCollins, Simon and Schuster, and the LDS Church Friend magazine. She is the author and illustrator of the children's books Monsters vs. Kittens, Dinosaurs vs. Puppies, and Once Upon a Time There Was a Pig. She is currently active in her LDS ward in New Hampshire and enjoys being part of the Affirmation community. Danny Jones.
First of all, thank you to the conference committee for inviting me to speak. And I'm excited to be kind of like opening up the conference. And by excited, I mean terrified. But I've made this deal with God that if he gives me the opportunity to do something that I know will help me become the person that I want to be, even if it scares me, I will do it. Because I know the things that scare me are probably the things that will help me the most. And of course, this has backfired on me because now I'm like terrified all the time. So. And just when I think I'm safe, I've done all the learning I need to do, life comes at me like, how about speaking in front of hundreds of gay Mormons? Okay, no. But I knew I had to say yes because I knew this was important. And because I've spent far too long feeling like I was alone as a gay Mormon. So I attended my first conference 2 years ago. And it didn't take me long to fall in love with the Affirmation community. And my favorite part of being amongst you all is just hearing all your stories. So tonight I thought I'd just simply share my story and hope it resonates with some of you. So I've loved art for as long as I can remember. But when I went to school, I had no intention of being an illustrator because, of course, society tells you that artists are poor and starving. And so I grew up thinking I would get a real job in something like medicine or business or computers or something. But the only direction I felt could truly make me happy was art. So in college, I had to make a decision. Do I go all in and get an illustration degree, or do I leave art behind for good for something more practical? And I knew that getting an art degree would point my life in an unconventional direction. And it was one that I was told was headed for disappointment. And could I be brave enough to break from a conventional life in order to pursue what I thought would make me most happy? When I graduated, I was hit rather quickly with several big obstacles, because first I had no idea how I was going to make an art career work. Second, I went through kind of a faith crisis. And third, I had absolutely zero social or dating life. And I remember a time, there was this moment when I was sitting at my desk in my bedroom, and I just had no money, no God, and no friends. And I was just overcome with hopelessness. And it was like a darkness had enveloped me. And looking back, I've kind of realized that everywhere that God has guided me over the following years was kind of in direct reaction to that moment. In my life, I can point to several times where I've just felt a strong pull. So as Mormons, we would say, I felt the Spirit. And it would either be a thought that would occupy my mind constantly, or some feeling that would drive me to take a certain action. And I felt strongly that there was some force working outside of me and helping me. And I felt one of these pulls one Sunday when I was sitting in sacrament meeting, and I was just wondering how I was going to make this art job work. And I was filled with a feeling of peace. And I remember it because it was a very specific feeling of courage, where everything that I had been worried about just seemed so easy. And I never forgot that. And I think God was testing me in that moment to see if I had the humility to listen and the courage to act on it. And that little nudge was enough to push me through the fear. And shortly afterward, I was able to do some things that got me my first children's book job. And I've had plenty of ups and downs since, and there have been days where I'm not sure if I broke that starving artist stereotype, but I've continued to feel God's guidance in navigating it. So the second big pull that I felt in my life was church. Because I grew up not really feeling like I belonged in Mormonism, because everyone else just seemed so perfect and different than me. And I struggled to feel any kind of testimony throughout my life. So after I left BYU, Idaho, and I was home now, so I reached this point where I had to decide for myself, like, do I want to go to church or not? And to be honest, I had kind of expected this moment my whole life, the moment where I would just walk away from church. But for some reason I didn't. And service on church was really challenging for me. I felt incredibly lonely, and I wasn't even sure why I was even there, other than I just felt a strong pull. But the most profound thing I remember about those years is how God kind of pushed me into all kinds of relationships, whether it was people I worked with in callings, or kids I taught in primary and young women, or just friends who reached out and served me. And then one Sunday, I just walked into my ward and realized I was surrounded by family. And I don't mean to say that I gained a testimony because I made friends, but it was an inward reflection of transformation that was going on inside of me. Because I remembered that girl that sat in despair in her bedroom those years ago, and she was the kind of person that hated people and hated her life and resented God. So the transformation for me was nothing short of a miracle. And it was a time when I had to learn how to open myself up and serve the people around me and get to know firsthand the power of the atonement of Christ. And for the first time, I felt like I had a testimony I believed in. And I felt like every good part of me that was hidden inside of me just came out. And I was able to change from a lonely recluse to a sister, daughter, teacher, and friend. And so I tell you all this so you can understand that my relationship with the church and with the Mormon community was never really something I took for granted, because it was something that really earned. And it truly made me a a better, stronger person. So when I finally admitted to myself that I was gay, I thought I might lose it all. So here comes the third big pull of my life, coming out. And so my faith kind of shattered because I didn't know what to believe in anymore. And I wondered if all those times I'd felt the Spirit were false. But I knew that coming out would change the nature of all my relationships in awkward and maybe negative ways. And at the time, everyone was drawing these dividing lines in stuff like elections and marriage equality and bathroom debates and church policies and suicide epidemics, still are. And the message I received from both the LDS and LGBTQ communities was that I didn't belong in Mormonism. And that was kind of devastating to me because I had worked so hard to create a life for me at church. But I had also felt this really strong pull to come out, like so strongly that I felt my life depended on it. And so I prepared to take the only path that I thought was ahead of me, and so I got ready to leave the church. However, one question that came to my mind one night kind of changed my course, and it was just simply, what if I just kept going to church anyway? What if I disagreed with church policies? And what if my leaders and my entire ward knew I was gay? And what if I decided to date? And what if I was labeled different or bad? And what if I did lose some of my friends? But what if I kept going to church anyway? And not out of rebellion or for others' approval, but just because I wanted to be there. And that one question removed a lot of the conflict I was feeling because it gave me permission to forge my own path. And I didn't have to discard my spiritual experiences, and I didn't have to separate myself from my congregation. And it was a little bit easier to put aside the damaging messages that I received from my religion. And despite any consequences, what mattered most to me was my personal relationship with God. And I also knew that being my honest self among my Mormon friends was just one thing that I could do to maybe help bridge this rift that hurts our community so much. And so I strongly felt that that's what I needed to do. And I don't want to invalidate the decisions that others have made to stay or the church. And this is definitely not me saying that it's better to stay. It's just me saying that this was simply the right balance that I needed. And it gave me the confidence to rely on God and the peace to take life as it comes. And my relationships certainly did change after I came out, but not quite in the way that I had expected. Because it turns out that being more open and vulnerable about my life strengthened all the ties I had around me. And not to say that I have been free from awkwardness or disagreement, but overall, I have found that people have been drawing closer to me, not farther away. And I am continually amazed by it. So the theme of this conference is Journey Together, and I think that's really appropriate message in regards to my story, because I feel strongly that Heavenly Father has given me a very specific message, that my personal power is in my relationships. And I can't afford to separate myself from people I love because they are what build me. And now after coming out, I kind of feel those roles starting to reverse, where not only am I taking in strength from other people, but now, for the first time being my whole true self, I feel like I'm fully able to give it back. So we are all living in a pretty unideal situation. And ideally, we would be unabashedly accepted with open arms by our church and our families and our community. But it's just not the case yet. But we all have that power in our relationships. And I've seen the effect that a lot of you in this room have had on the hearts of your parents, your spouses, your children, your ward members, and your church leaders. And each one of you touches the lives of many other people. And every time you allow yourself to be a little more brave and vulnerable, you let people in and strengthen the ties around you. And that's not to say that all relationships will be good or comfortable. And I don't mean to suggest that we should stay in relationships that are harmful. However, amidst our losses, we also have the power to find new relationships in places like here in Affirmation. And our efforts to be true to ourselves, even when it's awkward and painful, is not in vain, because that conflict can bring new awareness, and that's how we move forward. So in the book, Never Ending Story, the main character, Bastian, he gets transported to this magical world of Fantastica. And in order to return home, he is given just one simple instruction, and that's do what you wish. And on his adventures, he meets this wise, mystical lion, and he asks the lion, he goes, what do you suppose it means, do what you wish? And that must mean I can do anything I feel like, don't you think so? But the lion replies, no, it means you must do what you really and truly want, and nothing is more difficult. And it's the most dangerous of all journeys. And it requires the greatest honesty and vigilance, because there's no other journey on which it's so easy to lose yourself forever. So we who live in this awkward intersection of sexuality, identity, and religion are forced to ask some hard questions about ourselves. Now, what do we truly want? And what does God want us to be? And if we are not honest with ourselves on this journey, we risk losing our very worth. And if we deny another's chance to live honestly, we put them in danger. So through this process, I've had to get used to the fact that not everyone's going to do things in the same way. And conversely, I don't have to do things in the same way as everyone else. God has a different plan for each of us, and we do a major disservice to ourselves if we ignore the pulls that he gives us to guide our life. So, are you willing to live an unconventional life? And are you willing to be brave? And I now feel enormously blessed to be a gay Mormon, because I get to see life, love, and faith from a different perspective. And I might be terrified all the time, but also the happiest I've ever been. And if we're not at least a little bit scared, then we aren't getting anywhere. So my challenge to you is that you follow wherever life pulls you. And whether you believe that pull is from God or from your own intuition, just follow it. And all you have to be willing to do is take that one little thing that scares you, but that will bring you closer to that person you want to be, and do it. And in doing so, I think we can all make it on our journey home together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. We really appreciate it. And following our next speaker, Justice Tula from the Affirmation Board will give us our closing reflection for the evening. And then immediately following that, we're excited to have Jeffrey Scott Parsons with us, who will be performing his one-man show, Comfy, straight after this session. Savannah Stevenson is a West End leading lady, having appeared in numerous theatre productions in the UK. She trained at the Guildford School of Acting and with the prestigious National Youth Music Theatre. Her West End theatre work includes the original cast of Mary Poppins, the stage adaptations of Chariots of Fire and Gone with the Wind, and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Aspects of Love. She has also appeared in numerous TV dramas in the UK. She is best known for starring as Glinda in the London production of the hit musical Wicked, which a role she played for 3 years and over 1,000 performances. Savannah also portrays Mary, Mother of Jesus, in the LDS Bible videos. Last year, she spoke at our Affirmation London conference, which was a wonderful experience. So, I couldn't be happier to introduce Savannah Stevenson.
I did not know he was a singer. Yes. Amazing, Aaron. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It is so wonderful. I really feel quite privileged to be able to be here with you tonight and to speak with you. I thought I would start. The way I'm kind of going to work it is I'm going to speak to you for a little while, and then I'm kind of going to do a little mini concert at the end as well, which I hope that you'll enjoy as well. Oh, thanks. Yes. Thank you. So I thought I would start, first of all, by sharing with you why I'm here. And really, my own journey to Affirmation started back in 2016. And I came across a shared post on Facebook. And it was an article about that amazing singer, Aaron McManus. And I was so impressed by this article. He was, I think he was being interviewed in it. And I was impressed by his positive attitude to being both gay and Mormon, and his willingness to speak openly. I felt I just had to reach out to him, although I was a complete stranger. And so I did, and I offered my support and my appreciation for him, and I asked, is there anything I can do to help? And our Facebook conversation led me to being invited to speak at the London conference last year. And somehow I've been invited back this year, so I'm really thrilled. So to tell you a little bit about me, I am an active member of the church, along with my husband Nate, who's here tonight. He's the really tall one at the front, you can't miss him. And we actually met here in the States, and we now live in London together. And we both feel really passionately about being allies to the LGBTQ community. We both have many friends who are gay, and some friends who are gay and Mormon. We've spoken to our friends often in the hope that we can find more understanding, and we really wanted to learn about their experiences. But it's a little closer to home than this as well, in that Nate's uncle Ron was gay. And I've been chatting a little bit actually to Nate's mum and dad in our stay here, just to find out a little bit more about him, and they have agreed for me to share this. They're really open about it. But Ron was afraid that he might be disowned by his Mormon family, and it was only when he became very sick with AIDS that he came out. He died not long after coming out in the early 2000s, and I know from speaking to Nate's parents that they look back with some portion of regret that Ron felt he couldn't come to his family sooner. They loved him and love him unconditionally. And also that he himself may have not been fully comfortable with his own identity. It forced the family to challenge some preconceived ideas and has had a most positive effect on them. Our respect and our love for this community runs deep with us. So tonight, I thought I would share a few stories and insights and thoughts from my own life, and I hope that one or two of them may resonate with you. Now, from what some of you may know about me, my life may sound a little bit glamorous, and in some ways, it is. And so what I thought I would do, I'd start by just sharing a few sort of cool highlights from my career mostly. I thought I'd share some of them with you. So I always say that in my career, I've had the opportunity of meeting two queens. Maybe not those kind of queens that you're thinking of, the other queens. I'll go on to that. The first is I had the opportunity to perform for and meet Her Royal Highness, the Queen of England, Elizabeth II. Yes, that is a real picture. That is me with the Queen. But I've also had the honour of meeting the other Queen, which is the Queen of Musical Theatre, Julie Andrews. Yes. Yes. But I don't have a picture. It was before kind of we all had mobile phones that could do it for us. And I also met another Queen. Do you get it? I thought this might bomb. For those of you that don't know who this person is, this is Queen as in Brian May of Queen fame. kind of a hero of mine. And if you're wondering why there is a tiny Christmas tree in this picture with us, it's because he came into Wicked to judge our Christmas decoration competition, and that is all the time I had. That is what I achieved. Not very good. I have been able to perform for and meet other actors that I revere, people like Matt Damon. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You can kind of give an ooh if you want to. Ooh, yes. And also Angelina Jolie loves Wicked and brings her children every time she visits London, which is amazing. I've also performed for various pop stars and Olympic athletes. I have even duetted with Mormon heartthrobs. Oh, yes. And I've been able to work with some of the most famous theatre directors in the world. I get to tell amazing stories. I get to bring families together, including my own. It's one of my favorite things when all my family comes to the shows that I do. I have been able to attend awards ceremonies. I get to wear fabulous costumes. There's some of them right here. And I get to go to sometimes celebrity parties. You could say my life is pretty rich in experiences. But I think it's important to remember that there is a lot more going on in all of our lives than perhaps our Instagram or our Facebook feeds suggest. We all tend to share the highlights, but rarely expose our vulnerabilities. So I thought that tonight I would open myself up, make myself a little bit vulnerable, and tell you about some of my low points and my difficulties. So here we go. I deal with rejection often. Most people in their lives go to just a handful of job interviews. I go weekly and am often, if not usually, rejected. My industry is competitive, it's pressured and uncertain, and everyone is a critic. I can suffer with anxiety. I have suffered with anxiety and at times depression. I am often judged on how I look, and I can struggle with my self-esteem and my body image and self-judging. When you perform, it's really high pressure to deliver each night. And every day becomes about being fit and well to perform and to not let people down. And that's a lot of pressure, and that weighs quite heavily on me as a person. Unemployment is a constant worry and a reality, and I have felt the upsetting uncertainty of that. And with that comes a feeling of failure and rejection. And I have also experienced the horrible effects of serious illness in my close family. So, in fact, just a few weeks ago, I did something that for me was pretty scary. The Broadway fans out there tonight, do we have some Broadway? Raise your hands if you love a bit of Broadway. Amazing. I'm in the right place. This is good. So you Broadway fans out there, you will know that recently Disney launched their new Frozen musical, which has been a great hit on Broadway. And one of the show's stars, Patty Morin, she shared on her Twitter that she had been experiencing severe anxiety and that she would be taking a little time off the show. And so, in showing my support for her on my own Twitter account and hinting that I too had struggled with anxiety, I was contacted by our leading industry paper in the UK to see if I might be willing to do an interview on the subject. I wrestled with whether I had the strength to make myself so vulnerable in a public forum, but I decided that my honesty would help others, and so the article was printed, and here it is, a part of it. To my surprise, I received nothing but support and love from my colleagues, from my industry friends, and from strangers, many of whom said, "Oh, me too." And it was a lesson to me that being vulnerable and being willing to open up and share our difficulties is one of the most important things that we can do in our lives. So what has gotten me through some more difficult times in my life has been my sweet family and my close friends and my faith. And by faith, I certainly mean my own personal faith in God and Jesus Christ, but also a faith in myself. I'm not always confident. I doubt. But somewhere deep inside of me is faith that God loves me and that he wants to use me for good things. and that he will come through for me if I can just keep going. So I thought I'd give you a little example of kind of some of the difficulties of being an actor. My very first job, I was really, really lucky. It was in the ensemble of the original London cast of Mary Poppins. And I got this job straight out of drama school, and it really was the best start to my career that I could have hoped for. But you may find it surprising when I tell you that I left that show after my year's contract on the Saturday night, and on the Monday, I began working in a call centre. And I was selling theatre tickets. And one of the shows I sold for was, yes, you guessed it, Mary Poppins. So just to be clear, I went from being on a West End stage to selling tickets for the same show in 48 hours. Life can be uncertain and at times not easy. Another story I wanted to share was a number of years ago. I was really struggling. I was really struggling to get an acting job, and I had an audition for a play. And at the time, I was working a number of day jobs to sort of make ends meet. And I went in for this audition, and I was excited about it. It was a nice job. And I went in to read, and the director was awful. He was horrible to me. He kind of picked through my resume, insulted some of my credits on my resume, and insulted some of my acting choices. And I had to do what we call a cold read, which is where I hadn't seen the material before. And he just gave me the most impossible direction to take on a cold read. And I vividly remember walking out of that audition and going into Covent Garden. Those of you who may have been to London, you'll know exactly where I mean. And in the centre of Covent Garden, there's a few kind of benches there. And I remember vividly coming out and sitting down on this small bench and just bursting into tears, wondering how long I could endure this constant rejection. And then it was a scene like out of a movie, because the heavens opened and the rain poured down and I got absolutely drenched. And we were in the middle of a full-blown thunderstorm. Now, that night, I was due to travel to a pickup point. I was to get a train to a pickup point where a group of my colleagues had a car, and we were going to drive all the way up to the north in Manchester. If any of you know where Manchester is, about 4 hours north. And the next day, I was going to be teaching drama in a school. So from Covent Garden, I walked down to Waterloo, absolutely drenched, to catch the train to make the car. And as I walked into Waterloo Station, I realised very quickly that it was absolutely packed and everyone was looking up at the board, and the board said, cancelled, 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 cancelled. Due to the adverse weather conditions, all the trains were cancelled and not a single train seemed to be leaving. I remember frantically trying to call my colleagues, trying to arrange another option, praying in my head that God might just send me one train to get me there. But it was decided that it was too late and that the car had to leave without me and that I wouldn't make it. So I had to squeeze myself on a bus and go home. But I remember standing in Waterloo Station and kind of looking heavenward and not understanding why. In my mind, I wasn't even asking for an acting job. I was asking for a day's teaching to help me pay my rent that week. Have you ever been there? Stood wondering, where are you? Or why are you putting me through this? Well, the story continues. And the next day, I got a call really early from my agent. And she told me that for the audition that I went to the day before, I actually had a recall. And it was going to be that day. So I attended, and I ended up being offered the part. Yes, with the awful director, that one. And it incidentally turned out to be my first leading role. Had I made it to my teaching job in Manchester, I could never have made the audition. I had prayed to have work for one day, but God had in mind to give me work for the next 6 months. Now, I know that things do not always work out this beautifully. They certainly don't for me. But honestly, I'm reminding myself of this story because in the times that my life gets really, really hard, this helps to remind me that God does have a plan for me, that he does come through for me, and that he can see the full picture when I can only see part. Now, I had the honor of playing Mary in the LDS Bible videos. Have you seen those? Just give me an idea. If you have seen them, that's amazing. And it really has been just probably the best sort of professional experience of my life. For those of you that don't know about the Bible videos, they are free for anyone to use for any good purpose. And I've received numerous really sweet messages from people who use them in their schools or in other churches, or for some watching them has become part of their Christmas tradition. So one of my favorite ways that the Bible videos have been used, the footage was used as part of a Piano Guys video. So I thought for those of you that haven't seen them, I would share this clip. So I hope you enjoy. So the experience of playing Mary in these films has been a really profound one in my life, and for a few reasons. When I first auditioned for the role, I was actually really struggling in my personal life. I felt the lowest I ever have in my life, and I was broken and I was depressed, and I'd been that way for a number of months. I was hardly leaving the house. I had little or no desire to eat anything. And I wondered where God was. I felt frustrated because I felt that I was promised to feel peace and comfort if I tried to draw close to him, and I just felt that that wasn't coming at all. And when I learned that I'd been given the opportunity to play Mary, it did lift me, and I felt that God was there for me, but I still had this awful heartbreak that just wouldn't go away. And I felt a real sense of that as we went into the filming. And I wanted to share, I had a number of really amazing experiences through the filming of these videos, but the one that I wanted to share with you was the day that we actually filmed the scene of the crucifixion. And I also played older Mary, and so I knew that this day was going to be a really difficult one to film, and I could see them kind of putting up the 3 crosses on the hill, and I kind of took myself away and just wanted to make sure that I was in the right frame of mind to film the scene. And as I was placed in my position at the feet of the actor who was portraying Jesus, I decided that I wouldn't look up until we were going for a take. And so what you hear on set is you hear that they are rolling, and then you hear action. And I really vividly remember at rolling, I looked up and saw the actor portraying Jesus on the cross. But I just got this overwhelming sense of love. And it was kind of a new experience for me, because I'd always been taught that Jesus died for my sins. But in that moment, I just had this special, deeper, personal connection to that teaching. And I really felt that he carried all my pain and my disappointment and my depression. And the sorrow and the heartache that we feel is somehow part of that process too. And I also realized that the pain that I carried into that filming process was part of the plan for me to portray that role. It allowed me to connect on an emotional level to perhaps some of the uncertainty that Mary may have felt herself at her responsibility, and in some small sense, the devastation that she may have felt as she watched her son give up his life on the cross. And I really felt that in some small way, my grief was allowing me to portray hers. And I was so grateful for it. And looking back now, I really wouldn't change any part of that difficult few months for me, because I really feel it's when I grew the most. And the other reason that I'm so grateful for the Bible videos is because I was sent a really unexpected blessing. And in the third summer of filming, we filmed over 3 summers, just a few days before I was leaving to return to London, I met a pretty nice guy from Utah. And a mutual friend introduced us and invited him over to watch a movie with us, and he kept me up late talking that night. This is what they do. This is how they get you. And after about 2 years of long-distance dating, he moved to England, and we got married. And he's the best thing that ever happened to me. And also, in the same week that I met Nate, I was also offered a life-changing role in Wicked. It was a good week. But it was really, it always speaks to me that God works in his time and not ours. I was thinking, what do I really want to say to everyone here tonight? And I was thinking that there may be many of us here who experience difficult times, who may feel lost and alone. I believe that God loves all of his children and that he understands our unique circumstances and that we are never alone. What I love about Affirmation is that we are all united in love and friendship regardless of where we're at in our journey. And I have such respect and love for everyone in this room. Thank you. So now I'd like to do just a little concert for you, but I need an essential ingredient to do this, and that is a fantastic pianist. So will you please welcome my wonderful pianist, John Sargent. He's really, really good. Hi, John. So, as a homage to my days in Mary Poppins, we thought we'd start with a little something from Mary Poppins. In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and a snap, the job's a game. And every task you undertake becomes a piece of cake, a lark, a spree. It's very clear to see that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, the medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in a most delightful way. To the steps of St. Paul's, the little old bird woman comes in her own special way to the people she calls. Come buy my bags full of crumbs. Come feed the little birds, show them you care, and they'll be glad if you do. Their young ones are hungry, their nests are so bare. All it takes is tuppence from you. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag. Feed the birds, that's what she cries, while all overhead. Her birds fill the skies all around the cathedral. The saints and apostles look down as she sells her wares. Although you can't see them, you know they are smiling each time someone shows that he cares. Though her words are simple and few, listen, listen, she's calling to you. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag. Although you can't see them, you know they are smiling each time someone shows that he cares. Though her words are simple and few, listen, listen, she's calling to you. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag. Thank you so much. I have to drink here because it's so dry in Utah. So the next song is kind of a choice because I am desperate to play this part. So I feel like if I sing this song, I'm going to put it into the ether and it's going to happen for me. So this is actually a song from The King and I, which is one of my favorite shows. And I love the sentiment of this for this conference. When I think of Tom, I think about a night when the earth smelled of summer and the sky was streaked with white, and the soft mists of England were sleeping on a hill. I remember this, and I always will. There are new lovers now on that same silent hill, looking on the same blue sea. And I know Tom and I are a part of them all, and they're all a part of Tom and me. Hello, young lovers, whoever you are, I hope your troubles are few. All my good wishes go with you tonight. I've been in love like you. Be brave, young lovers, and follow your star. Be brave and faithful and true. Cling very close to each other tonight. your heels and to fly down the street in a trance, to fly down the street on the chance that you'll meet, and you'll meet not really by chance. Don't cry, young lovers, whatever you do. Don't cry because I'm alone. All of my memories are happy tonight. I've had a love of my own. I've had a love of my own, like yours. I've had a love of my own. So I thought I couldn't sing tonight without singing something from Wicked, right? As you heard before, I've performed Wicked for about 1,000 shows, which is crazy. So I thought the song that I would do for you tonight is popular. Whenever I see someone less fortunate than I, and let's face it, who isn't less fortunate than I, my tender heart tends to start to bleed. And when someone needs a makeover, I simply have to take over. I know exactly what they need. And even in your case, though it's the toughest case I've yet to face, don't worry, I'm determined to succeed. Follow my lead, and yes, indeed, you will be popular. You're gonna be popular. I'll teach you the proper ploys when you talk to boys. Little ways to flirt and flounce. Oh, I'll show you what shoes to wear, how to fix your hair. Everything that really counts to be popular. I'll help you be popular. You'll hang with the right cohorts. You'll be good at sports. Know the slang you've got to know. So let's start, 'cause you've got an awfully long way to go. Don't be offended by my frank analysis. Think of it as personality dialysis. Now that I've chosen to become a palimpsest or an advisor, there's nobody wiser, not when it comes to popular. I know about popular, and with an assist from me to be who you'll be, instead of dreaming who you were, well, are. There's nothing that can stop you from becoming popular. La, 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 la. We're gonna make you popular. When I see depressing creatures with unprepossessing features, I remind them on their own behalf to think of celebrated heads of state or specially great communicators. Did they have brains or knowledge? Don't make me laugh. Don't. They were popular. Please. It's all about popular. It's not about aptitude. It's the way you're viewed. So it's very shrewd to be very, very popular like me. And though you protest your disinterest, I know clandestinely you're gonna grin and bear it in your popularity. La, 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 you'll be popular, just not quite as popular as me. Oh, thank you so much. I feel like I get like nervous shakes before I do that song. I got 2 more songs for you. And the first one is a really special one to me, and it's one that you probably won't know. Some of you might, but it's from a musical called The Witches of Easterwick. And I love this song because this particular character has had kind of a rough start to life, and this one really makes me think of my dad. I never knew my father. He left so long ago. I never knew my father, but I knew enough to know what I was missing. And everything I felt then, these feelings that I knew, everything I felt then, I swore I'd see it through another morning. Every problem, all my life, another morning. I close my eyes, I fade to black, I hide my face, I turn my back, and there are these loose ends to deal with. Loose ends, I clear my throat, I give a smile, act unconcerned, when all the while they're haunting me. Loose ends to tie up, loose ends like buttons and bows, we collect them from family and friends. Loose ends, angel. I put the past behind me when it came underfoot. I put the past behind me, but the past would not stay put. So I was learning. I lived my little dramas with all the world my stage, and when the plot grew tangled, I saved the final page for some other morning. But all too quickly it arrives, that other morning. I close my eyes, I fade to black, I hide my face, I turn my back, and there are these loose ends to deal with. Loose ends, I clear my throat, I give a smile, act unconcerned, when all the while they're haunting me. Loose ends to tie up, loose ends. Did you know that you were blessed just having someone to call dad? Did you tell him that you loved him each and every chance you had? I hope you did. I hope you did. Because the things you didn't do have this way of haunting you. I never knew my father, but angel, I knew yours. And whatever's left behind, well, you can bear. You were loved. You were loved. You were loved. No So we thought we would finish with something that you will hopefully all know and love. It's from one of my favorite musicals and hopefully one of yours. And this is Think of Me from The Phantom of the Opera. Think of me fondly when we've said goodbye. Remember me every so often, promise me you'll try. On that day, that not so distant day, when you are far away and free, if you ever find a moment, spare a thought for me. And though it's clear, though it was always clear that this was never meant to be, if you happen to remember, stop and think of me. Think of August when the trees were green. Don't think about the way things might have been. Think of me waking, silent and resigned. Imagine me trying too hard to put you from my mind. Think of me, please say you'll think of me, whatever else you choose to do. There will never be a day when I won't think of you. Flowers fade, the fruits of summer fade. They have their season, so do we. But please promise me that sometimes you will think. Thank you all so much. You're so, so kind. But actually, do you mind just staying on your feet for just one moment? Because apparently I have been told that what is customary here is that sometimes we sing some songs together. So I was speaking to John, and he said, you know, something that everyone loves. They all love The Greatest Showman. Do you love The Greatest Showman? So I thought what we would do is we're going to sing A Million Dreams together, and which is one of my favorites. Now, the thing is, we have done a beautiful little arrangement, and I get to sing the first part alone. Yes. And then I will signal to you, I'll do this, and you'll see the fabulous lyrics come up, and I would love you to join in right through until the end. Can you do that? Okay. Breathe deep. Standing up is going to help. but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Oh, a million dreams for the world we're gonna make. However big, however small, let me be part of it all. Share your dreams with me. I may be right, you may be wrong, but say that you'll bring me along to the world you see, to the world I close my eyes to see. I close my eyes to see. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. For the world we're gonna make. You were amazing. Thank you so, so much. Thank you.
So as we close tonight's plenary, I'd like to offer the closing words in the form of a challenge. Tonight's challenge is posed by Rumi, a 13th century Persian Sunni poet, jurist, Islamic scholar, theologian, and Sufi mystic. He writes, "Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come." As an Affirmation family, some of us come with exuberant and joyful hearts, eager to witness to others. Some of us come bereft of the goodness of life, wondering, hesitant. Regardless, we say, "Come, just as you are." As a family, some of us come in the bloom of youth, ready to explore new truths. Some of us come ready to sit apart from the children and be nourished. And yet others of us come with gray in our hair and experiences to share. Regardless, we say, "Come, just as you are." As a family, some of us come to a place we never knew before as home. Some of us come to this place that has been home for many years. Regardless, we say, "Come, just as you are." As the great family of Affirmation, we come just as we are, to join our siblings as members of one family in this beloved community, our hands and hearts inextricably linked. Come, yet again come. Go now in peace and return in love. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Family and friends, I give you Jeffrey Scott Parsons.
We've just been introduced.
Lie way too faced, but in my heart I understand. I made my move, and it was all about you. Now I feel so far removed. You are the one thing in my way. You are the one thing in my way. You are the one thing in my way.